Week 2. So, if you are landing here watching this before birth or literally in the middle of your week 2, or because you're going through this journey to honor yourself again, having been postpartum in those initial 40 days, and now you're within that first year and you want to go through this whole process again, and I'm right here celebrating you as we land into week 2. Week 2 often feels like we've done a little bit of work now and we can just kind of like move on and crack on with our days. Often we feel like a birthing goddess who doesn't really need to honor that rest and that restore as much as she thought she did because she feels great. Or maybe you feel like you're still knee deep in it and you're starting to feel those waves of those hormones and the emotions and the reality of tending to a baby. We need to really honor what this could look like in those initial days. These are the really, really early days. And I believe passionately, and I will always believe passionately, that we should still be in our own cocoon, tending to ourselves, and really honoring that. If you are re-honoring this, then how could you tend to yourself and your energy this week and limit interactions and really just give yourself this real deep honored time? These are the sorts of things that I would recommend in week 2. So we're going to look at herbal baths. Herbal baths are a really beautiful healing way of landing in with Mother Earth and landing in with tending to the body, tending to the healing of the pelvis, tending to any tears, tending to any episiotomy. We're going to do a how-to on some of the herbs that you can use. When we run a herbal bath, we really make this a ceremonial time. Maybe you bring in the baby. Now, if you are postpartum in those initial 2 weeks with a C-section, then it is not recommended to bath. It is entirely up to you. It is your body, but it is not recommended to bath. Normally, I bathe with my mamas, as in not I don't get in the bath, but we bathe around week 4. Is roughly the earliest time that we kind of get into the bath, and we just make sure we check in with the scar around that. Having a shower, allowing the water to wash off, keeping it dry, keeping it away from those any plasticky pants that you might have been wearing. Ideally cotton, but it's everyone has whatever they feel they need to use. So we just have to really allow for that air to get to that scar. And we don't really want to be soaking it where possible. But if you feel like you feel like welcome to do that, then that is totally up to you. But I would say week 4 is a really lovely time. A lot of women find that they can get into the bath because also it's not just about the scar. It's about literally getting in to the bath and getting out of the bath. Now, you may not be a bath girly, and that's totally fine. I totally hear you on that. I'm not a wrinkly finger gal. I don't like getting my fingers wrinkly. So you give yourself this time to decide whether a bath is for you. So we're going to do a how-to. And the idea is that you create this really beautiful ritual and you can do as many herbal baths as you'd like to do. And the herbs that you're using will support and guide you into healing this area and are going to be specifically for that area. So here is the how-to for the herbal bath. This is how I approach all things herbal baths, and I'm not a herbalist. I have no qualifications as a herbalist. What I am is somebody who likes to forage for herbs. So I'm a forager and I'm a self-taught forager. So I really like to just do that as a preemptive. You might already work with somebody who works with herbs. You might already work with a naturopath or a homeopath. You might already have knowledge yourself around herbs. So you take what you want from this and you follow your own needs with your own body. I see herbs as very personal. So I use herbs that I feel that I personally understand inside and out, have drunk, have eaten, have used within tinctures, have used within my own baths, and so on and so forth before giving them to a mother. And I always check in with the mother around any reactions that might take place. And I'm also aware of any issues before, so any other allergies that might exist before. So it's really important that you're aware of how potent herbs are. So you will have a muslin. So you don't even need to use herbs essentially if you don't want to, but this is a muslin, like just from, a kitchen vibe muslin. And then you're going to need Epsom salts. So you'll be running your bath and you're going to use
some Epsom salts. I have a massive bucket because that is what I do, is I use a lot of Epsom salts. So I have a little funnel, which is actually a plastic bath toy, and that is probably enough Epsom salts. Use as much as you want. I put the Epsom salts there into my muslin. So that would go into my muslin and it is then piled up in my muslin. So I've now got a pile of Epsom salts in my muslin. And then herbs that I use for new mums postpartum, mugwort. I collect mugwort every year and I dry it and I use it in all things. Mugwort is a mothering herb. It's the mother of all herbs, in my opinion. And I would use probably about a teaspoon worth of mugwort into the Epsom salts. The next one that I would use for a new mum is yarrow. This is the last of my yarrow that I collected last year. This yarrow is beautiful because it supports with bleeding and slows bleeding. So it's kind of this really beautiful functional herb for bleeding postpartum. So about a teaspoon of that. It's also really good to make as a tincture post-birth, immediate post-birth. I always have a tincture of that for my mamas. The next herb that I use is rose because rose is a mothering herb. It reminds us of the Great Mother, smells really nice, and just generally really nourishing. And I would use motherwort. Motherwort, this is not foraged, and the rose was foraged from my roses, but this is not foraged. Motherwort is just another mothering herb, very, very similar to mugwort, works in a similar way. I use this in vaginal steaming quite a lot. It's a bit more woody, and you can use a teaspoon of that. Then the final one that I use, especially in postpartum mamas, is St. John's wort. St. John's wort, again, is not something that I forage myself, but St. John's wort is really, really great for our mood, riding those hormones, and I would use a teaspoon of St. John's wort. That all goes into the Epsom salts, and then I tie it into this really beautiful little bulge at the bottom. That then gets tied off with a hairband or an elastic band. So that would go on top with your herbs and your Epsom salts in it. It gets tied off and it gets placed on the stove. This would then boil in water, simmer in water for about 10 minutes. And you would get the goodness of the Epsom salts and the herbs in this really light simmer into the pan. And then being careful not to allow this to sit outside the pan and onto any gas because I have burnt one of these before. So this all goes in, it's simmering in the water, your bath is running, and then that water that you've simmered from your pan gets poured into your bath. And that's how to make a beautiful, beautiful herbal bath.
The next thing that we can do to really honor ourselves is womb massage. Often we hear that term womb massage and we don't really know what that looks like or what that can feel like. When you're postpartum and those contractions are happening to bring everything back together and knit you back together, womb massage can really support with that and really give that a gentle tending and allow for that to feel perhaps at times less like that contraction and more gentle and honored. And so I really, really welcome womb massage at any given point. I do womb massage for myself to support with the shedding of my womb lining. So if I end up with a painful period 1 month, I know that I need to tend to my womb and I will give myself a womb massage. Womb massage is not just for now. Same as herbal baths are not just for now. You can do a herbal bath at any point. I often do herbal baths for my children. We often do lavender and we do some like drops if we want to add drops and we do Epsom salts. I do Epsom salts for my children in their bath every single time they have a bath, which by the way is not that often because my children don't love washing. Here for it. So we need to allow for these tools to be used again and again repeatedly. These are not just now tools. So a womb massage really gives you this time to be with your womb on every level, on a physical level, a spiritual level, and an emotional level. You're creating again a ceremonial approach to it, and you're also going to allow for this to be as and when, say, post shower, post bath, and you can tend to your womb. But I do recommend that it's done in a time and a space where you have some time to connect with that space and really be with it. I also love doing a room massage when I'm post vaginal steaming, which we will cover. So you can do it, it's kind of like a two-way thing where we're doing the steaming from below and we're doing the massage from above. And it's a really beautiful way of connecting with that space and the pelvis overall. And finally, in week 2, we're going to cover the importance of deep rest. Deep, deep, deep rest. If you are doing this again and you're not in the immediate week 2, rest is needed as much as any other point. We are busy and we are doing all the things, and you might still be in your mat leave. And so this is the only time I always say to my clients when they're questioning rest, I say, this is the only time where you're going to have full permission to rest. There will not be a single other time like this where it feels like you can fully, deeply honor rest. And so make the bloody most of that, you know? Really, really honor that rest. You have got all the time in the world moving forward to do all the things, any things that you want to do. Right now, deeply rest. And that rest does not mean socializing necessarily, really. Rest looks like this time with just you and your child, your partner, maybe, or just yourself. And to give yourself permission. So I am giving you your permission slip to deeply rest at any given time. In fact, I rest more than I ever have rested before, and I honor that rest. I allow my partner to do things that I probably wouldn't have allowed back in the day so that I can rest. I allow my house to sometimes get a little wild, and believe me, for me, that is, yeah, it's a little wilder than perhaps someone else's wild. I'm someone that likes tidy and order and clean. And I have over the years had someone come and clean my house for me because I found that that was more important, being held and mothered and tended to by someone coming and cleaning my house. And they were very mothering women that would come to my house and then allow me to do either work so that it made sense that I could then carry on and do what I wanted to do for work-wise, or genuinely deeply rest. Not necessarily when the cleaner was cleaning, but it meant that I wasn't having to do the cleaning and tidy up and do all the things that I would be doing rather than resting. So, what does it look like for you to deeply rest, to take the permission slip and receive rest? What does receiving rest actually look like for you? And for all of us, it's different. Another form of my rest is reading. Another form of my rest is knitting. Another form of your rest might be listening to a podcast, might be watching a Netflix, might be just sitting on the sofa, drinking a cup of tea. What does rest look like for you? What do those pauses for your nervous system look like? What does it look like to knit yourself back together on an emotional level and a spiritual level and a physical level through rest? And rest in our society is not prioritized. It is actually made to be the villain, right? And nothing more, no pushing, no hustling, no doing actually makes a difference overall. So to rest is such a gift and an honored space to be in, to be able to rest, to be able to lay your bones at the altar of what it means to be landing in motherhood. We do not want to be the self-sacrificing mother where possible. We want to be the deeply rest and resourced and cupful mother where possible, because that will only ever serve us dividends, especially when we are on a lack of sleep. A lack of sleep is horrendous. And I have had twin sleep deprivation. It is horrendous. It feels like you are drunk. I always remember this time when I was in Screwfix, probably about 18 months in. And I remember having to hold the side where the books were to look for the tool I was looking for. And everything span. I was so tired. I questioned right there if you could die from sleep deprivation, which apparently you can, actually. So I really, 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 really needed to then come back to myself again and rest. And not because I was going to get sleep necessarily. We're not going to necessarily get the sleep that we need. Far from it. most of the time. But if we rest, it can allow for us to feel a little bit more whole, less like we've been on a night out, and more just in that receiving mode. So, this is my invitation to deeply rest. Sending love.